Alright, so there are a few people complaining about my click latency results on Reddit and one on Discord. Both seem kind of like trolls a little bit to me, but yeah, so okay, let's look at the comment on Reddit. So yeah, it's a deleted account and saying that how is this measuring click latency completely wrong? Ever wondered why his results are almost identical on all mice? I assume by all mice he basically means that with CX mice, the mice that have CX MCUs and basically the same firmware. So yeah, basically the X2 that I have attached to the LDAT here, the X2 Bruce Lee has optical switches, surprise, surprise, still the same MCU, same firmware, so pretty much the same latency. The XM2WE here, the latency Atlantis Mini here, yeah, the same X2. The Xtrfy M8 also has pretty much the same component, same latency, but it has 2 millisecond debounce, so it's 1 millisecond behind these mice. Is there any other CX mice here that I can see? Yeah, latency Atlantis. Basically, yeah, all of these mice have same results on my latency tests. Because of that exact reason, the same MCU, the same firmware, it's kind of boring. They basically get the same full solution from CompX and use it and do not customize the firmware that much at least. But yeah, this comment says that identical on all mice. Doesn't really make sense. My last report with the GPX is 1.1 milliseconds and the range with these CX mice is about 3.8 to 4.1 milliseconds. Deathadder V3 Pro 0.56 milliseconds if I remember correctly, so quite a bit lower than with CX. I don't exactly remember the XE latency, but yeah, it doesn't have a CX MCU. I think it had like 2.6 or 3.5 milliseconds. HDS plus 4K, 0.63 milliseconds with 4K. And yeah, the GPX had that 1.1 that I mentioned. So not really all mice. I've seen some comments that mention that I'm measuring LDAT latency. That does not make sense to me whatsoever. It's somewhat of a brain dead comment. So I'm here to explain basically what I'm doing. So yeah, first of all, I have the LDAT plugged into my PC with USB cable. Then the LDAT is also attached to my mouse via these wires. So yeah, like this. And you have to attach the wires to the switch. With opticals it's a little bit worse, or not worse, but it's harder because these don't have pins. The switches don't have pins and you have to find the test points on the PCB. So it's not as easy to measure latency, but it's still doable with this method. And yeah, so the X2 here, this is the X2. The X2 is also attached to my PC. And basically everything in the latency test that I do, the LDAT application is the key in everything basically. So let me record one oh, is it turned off? The mouse is turned off. Let's turn it on. It will help with the measurements. Okay, mouse is now turned on. Now if you look at the LDAT application here and I trigger the switch, you can see that the LDAT application is flashing. So yeah, it's registering that input. Now with the LDAT app there is a key combination where you basically press F5. Let's press F5. You get this info box and it's basically telling that you're measuring the latency. Okay, we got one result. Now I can of course spam F5 and get results just fine. But there is also F6 key combination where I press it and it uses these values here. So you can see the shots, which is 102, and shot delay, which is 0.2. So basically every 0.2 milliseconds it's triggering an actuation and measuring the latency. So this is how I get automated results really fast and really accurately. So if you wait for this, now we have 9 iterations. Now if you wait a little bit, it should have 102 more, and it now does. Okay, nice. Now one explanation, so why the LDAT application here is key, and this is pretty clear to me, as this should be pretty clear to you guys now that I explain it, that I'm measuring the actuation on the switch, so the LDAT registering that actuation, and the LDAT app and your system registering that input. So let's move the cursor outside of the LDAT app so it's not sort of centered. Now we press F5. You can see that the mouse gets centered, and that's the key here, because of course we want the input to be here. So let's see if I automate it. So I press F6. So we are now iterating the switch, actuating, And if I move the mouse outside of the LDAT window, you can see that the focus changes to the Reddit page that I have here on the background. And if I now open the LDAT app again, you can see that the LDAT app failed to detect the mouse click. So basically this means that once the LDAT application wasn't in focus, the click wasn't registered by the LDAT app. So it can't measure the latency in this way. So that's basically it. It's pretty simple. NVIDIA has documentation on this. They basically tell you what to do, so you can just measure the latency between basically the click latency. So you really do not need to measure end-to-end latency if you want to know click latency. It's actually absolutely useless to use end-to-end latency to compare click latency between mice or latency between mice, in my opinion, because it's just not needed. You're just adding variables that you do not want. This is the most pure form of measurement that I can find. The only issue is, of course, that you need to have an LDAT, and you need a contact from somebody to get one. And yeah, basically it's pretty hard to get one. Some people that do not deserve them have gotten them, in my opinion. but yeah, that's basically it. Yeah. Unless you want an USB analyzer, that's gonna be even more accurate than the LDAT, but yeah, it costs you way more and it's very hard to use. Basically, all firmware engineers use them for testing their implementation. That's it. Thank you guys for watching. One thing that maybe wasn't quite clear is that when I press the F5 and F6, the LDAT is electronically actuating the switch. So basically it's the same as me clicking the mouse, but that's not very good in terms of like automation, in terms of efficiency. So yeah, this is an insanely good way to like measure click latency with a high amount of iterations, and it takes basically no time. So huge shout out to the creator of the LDAT. Yeah, insane tool for click latency testing.